So I think this sort of AI-powered or machine learning-powered use of big data could really disrupt the credit scoring industry and democratize access to credit for households in the U.S.
Let's hear from the experts about how artificial intelligence is transforming the world of business. I'm Katie Gaertner, and this is Unsupervised. Hey, Business Badgers. Today, I'm sitting with Erik Mayer, a finance professor here at the Wisconsin School of Business. Erik earned his PhD in finance from Rice University. His recent work studies financial institutions and their interactions with households and that influence on economic mobility in the United States. So, Erik, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And let's talk about finance and AI.
Okay.
The first question I have for you is, what even is finance and why is it a major at the business school?
Oh, great question. Okay, so at its core, finance is really the study of how funds make their way from savers who have financial capital to the end users of that capital. So you could imagine, someone with an exciting project at a company or someone wanting to start a small business. So finance is really the study of this entire process. There are financial institutions like banks involved. There's financial markets. You can think the stock market, the bond market. So there are certainly a lot of subfields and angles to come at this from. But the very short answer is that finance is about how we take money from people who are saving it and go and invest it in the most exciting endeavors that the economy has to offer.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. So now that we know what finance is, how is AI being used in finance? Where do you see it playing out?
Yeah, no, another great question. So I think AI is, like a lot of fields, it's touching all different areas of finance. And it's sort of a horse race to see which areas it penetrates the most, where it makes the largest impact. So I think the most immediate or lowest hanging fruit are things like, interactions with customers, like when a customer has an inquiry about something that's going on in banking, right? You can see chatbots will be very helpful here. These have been around for years, but now the sort of AI versions of them are souped up and really much more effective. So this can, lower the costs for financial institutions for handling some of the sort of simpler inquiries from their customers. And of course, those cost savings can get passed along to customers so the customer can benefit as well. Some of us may not like interacting with the chatbot as much as with the real person.
Sure.
But if chatbots get better and better and they're more effective, it's really useful. So that's sort of the lowest hanging fruit, I would say. If you go one level up from that, you can think of something like a robo-advisor. So here, you may have an individual who's maybe investing for the first time and they're looking for some financial advice, some basic sort of wealth management advice, how to manage your stocks, your bonds, your portfolio. Traditionally, a lot of this wealth management advice was only accessible to the highest income earners in society who could pay a financial advisor to help them with these decisions.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing, this advent of robo-advisors, a company like Vanguard or Fidelity or other large companies will offer these where you can get somewhat personalized, pretty useful advice at a very low cost if you're going to work with a sort of a robo-advisor, basically an AI-powered chatbot entity that's really useful and can give good basic advice that's, somewhat tailored to your situation. So that's really a democratization of a really useful financial service to a broader set of people that's being powered by AI. So that's sort of the second level. And then if you wanted to think, what is sort of the cutting edge of where AI is starting to penetrate now, companies who are investing and making a lot of real-time trades and investment decisions, like you could think of a hedge fund, they've been, incorporating some component of algorithmic trading for a while, but this is really intensifying and you're seeing AI being used to process in real time news and other sort of big data type information that comes in. And ultimately they use this in real time investment decisions and trades. So that's sort of the cutting edge of where AI is hitting in finance.
Interesting. Yeah. So you see a lot of this predictive AI playing a role in finance.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So some of it will be maybe a bit more what we'd call machine learning than AI, but the definitions here are going to get blurred, and predictive AI and machine learning are going to mesh together, and eventually it's it's a little bit that black boxy how all of this works, but ultimately it can be really useful in predicting outcomes or things like price movements in the short run that hedge funds would be incredibly interested in.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so what are some things that are transforming, like some transformative developments in the industry that you're really excited about?
Yeah, no. So a lot of my research thinks about like access to credit in consumer credit markets. So you could think about like auto loans or access to a mortgage or households' access to credit cards and things like that. And so here, AI could potentially have a pretty large impact. So traditionally, how do lenders make these decisions of who to lend to or not? Well, they look at something like a credit score. And so we've probably all heard of like FICO. What's your FICO credit score? Yeah. And you need a good credit score to get a loan, right? That's the basic idea. Now, traditionally, these credit scores have been built on sort of very traditional within the financial services industry type of information. So it's all built on your past history with these same lenders, whether you've maybe gone delinquent on a loan in the past or not, how long of a credit history you have, whether you've looked like a good borrower in the past, right? But all that information is coming from within these same auto lenders, credit card lenders, et cetera. And so one of the big potential innovations here with the sort of advent of big data and a lot of new data sources coming to the fore is that you have new information like what's your current status on your rent payments? What are your current wages coming in? How are you spending the money that you're earning, right? What do your spending patterns look like? How responsible do they look, right? And so you could certainly see, and we're already starting to see, companies sort of innovate and start to incorporate some of that sort of alternative or different sources of data into decisions about who's creditworthy and who to lend to. And so this, I think, really has the opportunity to expand access to credit in the U.S., who can get a loan. Because decisions aren't just going to be based on, your past performance on loans. They'll be based on, how you're spending and all these other factors that are sort of more real time and can be useful if you don't have a long credit history. And that can be really useful for maybe lower income households who don't have a long credit history but are doing all the right things to show that they're creditworthy on these other dimensions. And so I think this sort of AI-powered or machine learning-powered use of big data could really disrupt the credit scoring industry and democratize access to credit for households in the U.S.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. So can you give me a sense of how companies are using AI in finance to compete, to get a competitive edge, or adapting their traditional business models to this new technology?
Yeah. No, I think so again, I think it's easy to imagine there are some immediate sort of cost savings if you can take some sort of routine tasks that you've been paying sort of your entry-level workers, human workers, a lot of money to do in the past, and you can automate some of that. That's certainly like the first, simplest thing, the way you can use AI. I think the next sort of way is you can think of, can we use it to make better decisions? And so this is maybe up one level in the organization. It's sort of I don't think it's going to ever become a replacement to strategic thinking on the human side, right? I think we're always going to need analytical, smart, problem-solving humans, but they can interact with AI, right? You can use it as a brainstorming tool for how to approach a problem. And so I think being comfortable and familiar with AI in some of the decision makers in your organization could be really useful. And then I think there are sort of situations when you can take a basic product or service or tasks that you need to accomplish where you've been doing it without AI, and you can kind of transition or add AI into it and just become much more efficient at it. So an example I kind of have in mind here is like fraud prevention in the financial industry. So if you think about credit card companies, they have millions and millions of customers. They have hundreds of millions of transactions that they need to monitor and try to detect the fraudulent ones.
Yeah.
Right? So then someone's not using your credit card fraudulently. So in the past, they had some sort of simple rules that would kick in and raise a red flag if you did something like spend more than usual, faster than usual, or in a location where you weren't normally, right? And so that would prevent a decent amount of the fraud, but it would also kick up a lot of false positives, right? And so at least in my life, I've even noticed that I get fewer sort of false positive red flag events. And so one of the things that the credit card lenders are doing is they're using AI and using machine learning to understand, what is a realistic pattern of spending versus a fraudulent one. So let's say they see a bunch of charges in Mexico, right? And maybe you're in Wisconsin in the winter, you want to take a quick trip before the semester begins, you go down to Mexico for a warm vacation, right? Well, instead of just seeing some charges in a foreign country and thinking that looks potentially fraudulent and raising red flag, the AI and the machine learning can look and say, okay, is there a airline flight purchase in the past? Is there a hotel purchase in the past, right? Have they recently bought sunscreen, right? Yeah. You can imagine all sorts of things that would like correlate with, that the user of this credit card is really in Mexico, right? And so you can use smarter approaches with AI to accomplish some of the same tasks. And if you're on the cutting edge of that, you can provide a better service to your customers, right? Less sort of false flags for fraudulent events, potentially lower costs if you're replacing some human decision making with these AI models. So it's a really way to get a sort of an edge in a very competitive industry.
Yeah, I imagine using a different way to detect these patterns also create some opportunities to catch some fraudulent behavior that you wouldn't catch with those simple if-then, like very basic rules.
Definitely. If even if it's only an hour, if there's some charges occur just an hour away from where you live, but they're at stores that you have never gone to in the past, and there's a bunch of them immediately, and then it shows maybe another charge where you actually are in between them. That's something like subtle that a simple rule-based measure of might not catch, but the AI, more complex model will catch, right? So I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity for, a smart application of an AI model in all sorts of settings in finance. So it's kind of an exciting thing to think about.
Yeah. So you mentioned AI is not going to replace humans. They're still going to be needed in finance. So for our budding finance professionals that we have here at the Wisconsin School of Business, how are job roles changing in finance due to AI? And then what kinds of skills do these emerging professionals need in a new job environment?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think basically some of the most routine or mundane jobs in finance face the most direct competition from AI, right? So these are the data entry type positions. And frankly, that might be great because those aren't always the most enjoyable jobs, right? So I think where the emphasis really goes to then is, as you're starting out off in your career, can you develop those critical thinking, those strategic thinking, those problem-solving type skills first and foremost? Because that's the thing that's the most difficult for the AI to potentially replicate, right? And is the most human of the things here. It also implies that you'll want, because a lot of positions will be interacting in some way with AI and with machine learning, with big data, there's an advantage then if you can bring these strategic thinking skills, but also be familiar with AI and these tools, and interact well with them and use them to your advantage in the workplace. I think that'll be an increasingly important skill. And then I think there's always going to be just an importance of, are you a good communicator, right? Do you interact well with your other coworkers? Do you present well in front of others and things like that? That will just always be a feature in the workplace. And so I think any opportunity you have to practice that and do presentations at the front of the classroom, et cetera, are really useful. So
that's great advice. All right, we're going to wrap up with a fun question.
Okay.
If you could turn over one task, any task that you would never have to do again, and you could turn it over to AI and robotics, what kind of robot would you invent?
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, it's not as hard as I thought. I would definitely have a robot that did laundry and folded and put away the laundry.
Oh, okay.
I often get to doing the laundry and having it folded, but the putting it away, so tough. I think the person who really invents that robot that is affordable and that's going to be $1 billion idea. I'm sure there's smart people working on it, but I haven't seen it yet, so I'm still waiting.
As a mom of middle school boys, I am also waiting for the laundry bot to come out because they produce it in volumes. So I'm on board with that one. I think it's a great idea. Cool. Well, Erik, I learned so much from sitting and talking with you. Thank you for taking the time to chat and talk to my students about finance and AI, and excited about the things that are in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Unsupervised is brought to you by the Wisconsin School of Business. It's written and hosted by Katie Gaertner, with sound editing and production by Derek Schneider and Billy Kardaj.